She walked into the luxury boutique, wearing nothing more than a plain brown dress and quiet confidence. To the three glamorous blondes draped in designer labels, she was invisible, just another simple woman who didn't belong in their world of wealth and status. They exchanged glances, smirked, and whispered loud enough for her to hear, their mockery slicing through the calm air of the store like a knife. But she stayed composed, choosing silence over confrontation. What they didn't know was that the man walking quietly beside her wasn't just her husband. He was one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the country. The tension grew as the women's laughter turned bold, public, and cruel. But just as the scene was reaching its peak, everything changed. The billionaire husband, who had stayed quiet long enough, finally stepped forward. And what he said in that moment didn't just silence the mockers, it flipped the entire room on its head. People stopped. Eyes turned. The truth revealed something none of them were ready for. What did he say? Why did his words leave them speechless? And who was this simple woman they thought they could humiliate so easily? You're about to find out. A few minutes earlier, the woman, her name was Emma, had simply been browsing through dresses, quietly enjoying her day. She wasn't flashy, didn't wear expensive makeup or designer heels, and certainly didn't care about showing off. That's what made her stand out in a place like this. The three women who mocked her, Chloe, Tiffany, and Brooke, were regulars at the boutique. Known for their beauty, money, and sharp tongues, they thrived on being the center of attention. When they saw Emma, they saw someone who didn't belong. Someone they assumed was lost or tagging along with a wealthy man for the perks. What they didn't know was that Emma had once lived in a world much like theirs, but had walked away from it for something more real. She'd met her husband, Daniel, long before his name made headlines and his businesses exploded into global empires. To her, he was still the same kind man who brought her flowers on rainy days and remembered how she liked her coffee. But to the rest of the world, he was untouchable, too important to care about moments like this. So when Daniel finally looked up from the suit rack and noticed the scene unfolding, something in his eyes shifted. Daniel slowly put the jacket he was holding back on the rack, his expression calm but unreadable. The chatter behind Emma was getting louder now, more pointed. "Some women will do anything to land a rich man," one of the blondes said with a fake laugh, eyeing Emma from head to toe. The other two giggled, playing along like it was all harmless fun. But Emma felt every word hit like a stone. Her back stayed straight, but her eyes dropped for a moment, just long enough for Daniel to notice. The boutique had gone oddly quiet. A few other shoppers had turned to watch, sensing tension in the air. One of the employees walked over to offer assistance to the three blondes, not Emma. "Would you ladies like a private fitting room?" she asked with a smile, ignoring the growing unease. The women beamed with pride, clearly feeling victorious. But just then, Daniel stepped forward. His voice, low but firm, broke through the silence. "Is this how you treat people here?" he asked, not looking at the women. Not yet. His tone wasn't angry, just cold, controlled in a way that made everyone freeze. Emma looked up slowly, eyes meeting his. The moment was coming, and everyone could feel it. The room tensed as Daniel's question hung in the air. The boutique staff froze. The three blondes exchanged confused glances, their smiles faltering for the first time. One of them tried to recover. "Oh, we were just joking. No harm meant," she said, her tone suddenly sweet but forced. Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he turned to the boutique manager, who had stepped out from the back after sensing something wasn't right. Then came the twist no one saw coming. A security guard appeared at the front entrance and quietly approached. "Daniel." "Sir, I believe there's something you should see," he said, holding out a phone. Daniel looked at the screen for only a moment before his jaw tightened. The phone showed footage from just an hour earlier. Chloe, Tiffany, and Brooke in the same store, mocking another woman, a pregnant customer, and laughing as they pressured a clerk to refuse her service. It had been reported but dismissed until now. Daniel's gaze finally turned to the three women. "This isn't just about Emma," he said. "It never was. This is a pattern." The boutique fell into silence again, but this time it wasn't. Awkward Eat was heavy, expectant. Whatever was coming next, no one would be able to ignore it. Daniel handed the phone back to the guard, then looked around the store. "You saw what happened," he said, addressing the staff and manager, "and yet you allowed it to continue." His voice was calm, but every word landed with weight. The manager stepped forward, stammering, trying to explain, but Daniel raised a hand to stop him. "No more excuses. My wife deserves the same respect as anyone else in this store, if not more." The three blondes looked stunned. Chloe tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "We didn't mean anything by it. We didn't know who she was." Emma finally stepped forward. "That's the problem," she said gently. "You treated me badly because you assumed I was no one. It shouldn't matter who I'm married to." The manager apologized, offering them private service, even suggesting everything would be complimentary. But Daniel shook his head. "We won't be shopping here again," he said, "and neither will anyone in my network." Just as they turned to leave, the twist came. One of the boutique employees, quiet until now, stepped forward. "I quit," she said, unpinning her name tag. "I've seen too much of this here. And today, I've seen enough." The door closed behind them, but the message stayed. Outside the boutique, the air felt lighter. Emma walked quietly beside Daniel, her hand now tucked gently in his. She didn't say much, but the way he looked at her said everything: pride, respect, love. Not because she had stayed silent in the face of cruelty, but because she had carried herself with grace when others wouldn't have. The three blondes didn't follow. For once, they had nothing left to say. News of the incident spread quickly, especially after the employee who quit shared her story online. Within hours, comments poured in, people praising Emma for her calm strength and calling out the shallow behavior of the so-called elite. Others opened up about being judged for how they dressed, where they came from, or who they were with. The story had struck a chord. Emma didn't seek attention. She never did. But the experience reminded her of something important: true worth isn't worn, and kindness will always leave the deepest mark. As for Daniel, he made a quiet donation to a women's shelter the next morning, in Emma's name, without telling anyone. Because in a world that often judges by appearance, their story was a simple but powerful reminder. Character is the only thing that never goes out of style.